So I decided to do the meds heads, the 100 heads, and I learned a couple things whenever I first started. I hadn't done a lot of sketching in a while, and I've noticed throughout the whole thing that I'm not very good at sketching noses and mouths, and at the beginning I spent a lot of time trying to perfect everything and make it look exactly how it looks in the pictures. And whenever I was doing them, I noticed that like when I was doing them, they wouldn't look like what they look like in the picture until I flipped through and looked back at everything that I was doing, and it looked pretty similar. And you'll see at the end I flipped through all the other heads. This is just the last 10. But yeah, I noticed that, you know, they looked more similar than when I was actually drawing them. And here at the end, I decided like I was kind of done doing them, because I mean it's a lot of faces. So I decided to do it more rough, more sketchy than I had in the beginning. In the beginning, I did a lot more smoothness and tried to make it more like the pictures. But here at the end, I was just trying to get the general gist of the face and just, you know, how it kind of looked. And I think they turned out pretty good. I noticed also that I liked doing the older men faces. There's a lot of like ceramics jugs and stuff that look like old men, and I felt like those were more interesting to do because there's a lot more shading and a lot more lines, and it's more fun to draw than like a pretty girl face, because a lot of the girl faces, and there were some men that they're just like really smooth and there's not a lot of shadow and it's like just lines, and that's okay. Like I like doing just lines, but like with the sketching I like doing the shading too, so it looks like more like the person. And with the girl faces, there weren't a lot of, you know, shading to go with it. I tried to add some color with the faces because, you know, I felt like just the black and white was it was boring. So like I added some color here and there, not with every page, just with, you know, some of them. I added a lot of color with this page because there was, you know, that blue and orange with the hat, and this face had some yellow on it, and I felt like if I didn't add it, like it wouldn't make sense because it was kind of like a paint splatter on his face, which you'll see. I liked doing this because it made me more loose and more like, I guess, forgiving with the faces that I draw. Like I said, I don't do a lot of sketching. I do more painting, and I do some like drawings in the black sketchbook, which you'll see on my other videos. But those are more like patterns and stuff. I like doing patterns, not a lot of sketching, not a lot of realness. But when I'm drawing, usually it's just to capture the key elements to make it like seem like it looks like it, you know, if that makes sense. So with this challenge, I decided just to focus on doing the faces and getting the shading on the faces right, rather than doing the bodies. Usually I didn't include any of the bodies really. I wanted to focus on, you know, getting the shading and the faces right, and, you know, the proportions of the nose, the mouth. And I didn't really worry about getting their clothes. Sometimes I would, you know, draw the suggestion of clothes, and some of them, or most of them, I didn't even worry about drawing their hair. and shading their hair. I was more worried about just getting, the face. On some of them I just like did suggestion of hair or shading in the hair, and I was just focused on the shading in the faces. And you can see with my shading, I do a lot of like scribble shading. I don't know, that's just like kind of my style. That's what I like to do, and I don't try to make it like perfect or whatever, and I feel like it works for me. I notice this a lot in this challenge because I don't usually do a lot of shading in my other stuff, and if I do, it's more painting, and with painting you really can't do, I guess you could do like scribble stuff, but I do a lot of like flat color. But anyway, with this challenge, I did like scribbling, like you can see here. So in my past sketchbooks, I usually wouldn't fill a page like this, not with like a bunch of different types of like faces or whatever. I would try to make it like a whole piece, like a piece of artwork that you would like sell or whatever, but it was in my sketchbook, something that I would just want to try out. And I wasn't really used to filling it with a bunch of different things. I have done it before, but not like this. So I wanted to get all 10 faces in the same like spread, because I felt like that would be just easier and better to look at. And so a lot of the time I wouldn't, I'm used to drawing bigger, and it kind of was a challenge to draw the head smaller and try to get them all on the same spread. So some of the time I would have to squeeze in a head here and there, but I made it work. I wanted each spread to be a day, and there's like 10 days you have to draw 10 heads. So it was a challenge doing that. I like centering the faces whenever I draw them, like centering them on the page, and drawing, that's one drawing, and then flip the page, another drawing. And so it was a challenge doing this, but I liked it. I liked the look of it, like flipping back through. I think it's like really interesting to look at. And something that I found hard while doing this challenge was just walking away from a sketch and leaving it the way it is, because a lot of the time when I'm working on something, even if it's in my sketchbook, I want it to look perfect. I want it to be just how I imagined it in my head. And a lot of the time when I was doing these faces, they didn't really turn out the way that I thought they would. I don't hate them, but I had imagined them differently. So a lot of the time I wanted to tweak them and tweak them and tweak them until they looked exactly like they did in the pictures. And I had to remind myself that this was just an exercise. It wasn't something that had to look perfect. It was just practice. And this challenge was really good for practicing faces. If you want to get better at practicing faces, I really recommend it, because there's a lot of different faces that I wouldn't normally even look at or use as a reference. And so I'm glad that I did this challenge, because it got me out of my comfort zone. Something that I found myself doing a lot during this challenge was doing a lot of repetition with the nose and the mouth. A lot of the time when I'm drawing a face, I'll just draw how I remember a nose looks like, or how I remember a mouth looks like, without really looking at the picture. So I really had to kind of break myself from doing that and really concentrate on how to shade the nose, and how where the shadows fall on the nose and the mouth, and how they even fall on the crease of the eye or whatever. Because a lot of the time I will just do it how I remember or how I do all my other sketches, because a lot of the time I don't really draw for the likeness, just the general shape of the face or where some of the shadows fall. So I had to catch myself, from doing that, because I liked to do it a lot because it's just kind of like a reflex. So this was good practice on how to really concentrate on what the nose looks like, what the mouth looks like, what the eyes, how are they shaped, where they are placed, and stuff like that. With these last two sketches, I had to go back and look at the past pictures, kind of scroll up on the Pinterest board. I'll link down below. But he had the guy that pinned these two twice. So when I saw him again, I kind of skipped over him, and it left me with less than 100, heads. So I had to go back and do them again. So they're in my sketchbook twice, which is fine. It's kind of good to look at how I drew them previously and how I did at the end of the challenge. I think at the end they're more, kind of sketchy, kind of rough, which it's fine, because that's what I was doing at the end. I was getting more sketchy, more rough, more loose with the lines that I drew. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.